my name is Jin. I'm in charge of Discover Creator Care, and this is our video series about how to monetize your webtoon, take advantage of the thousands of readers who come to our platform every day, and refining your craft. Today we have Ethan, who is the editor of Urban Animal and Trailer Park Warlock, to talk about pacing. Great pacing is what keeps readers engaged and coming back for more, so it's something you really want to nail when it comes to your webtoon. For this video, we're going to differentiate between what we're calling story versus storytelling, just to better have some vocabulary to discuss the differentiation on how to write your story versus on how to tell your story. So Ethan, if you want to take it away between those two?
Absolutely. So your story is basically what makes up the narrative that you're trying to explain to people. So it's your characters, how they act, why they act the way they do, what their flaws are, what their strengths are, what kind of journey they're going on, why it is they're choosing to do what they're doing from the beginning to the end. Bare bones and essentials of your narrative. That is what your story is. Storytelling is what it sounds like. It's telling your story, it is communicating your narrative to your readers. And in the world of Webtoon, there's a lot of techniques that really help your story shine that are very different to traditional comics or other forms of media.
To start us off in a big picture sense, we'll talk a little bit about how to structure or write your series as a whole and then break it down from there. Something that is a little bit unique to Webtoon is we publish on a season-by-season basis. This is exactly the same as how TV studios do it with their TV shows. And we also call our individual installments episodes, just like TV as well. These episodes are a little bit comparable to how comic books would publish with issues on a bi-weekly or weekly basis.
It's really great, I think, when we look at how we publish things, that we do it in a season manner or by seasons, because that helps to sort of take a larger, big, hunking narrative and sort of break it down. It makes it easier to plan, it makes it easier to get across what you're trying to get across and make sure you're not missing anything from the beginning to the end. When you're starting thinking about your story, what you want to do is give a little thought to if you're going to be following one main character through sort of a journey, or if you're going to be talking about maybe a world, maybe the world is more important than what's happening in it. You've got several characters sort of trying to figure out what's going on in this place. These different thoughts will help you discover what you want to do or how you want to structure it. There are different techniques that artists and writers do or use to write out their stories, things like the hero's journey that you may have heard of. Just about any main story that sees one main character sort of learning about themselves and changing, you can usually apply some bit of the hero's journey to that. And it's great, it gives you a good little structure to base your story around. Not everyone needs to use the hero's journey. It's not applicable in every situation, but it's a good one. It's one of the common ones.
And it keeps your story moving and it drives the plot, and it's just the commonly used way to get readers to stay engaged and going along.
Another way to structure your stories with what's called the 3 acts, the 3 parts. If you think about play that's been divided into 3 acts, it's a great way to sort of give you a structure and say, this is what needs to happen at this point in your story, this is what needs to happen here, this is what needs to happen by the end. These things need to come to a conclusion at this point or this point, this should be your climax, things of that nature. It's just a great way to give you a structure and make writing and delivering your series a little less daunting or scary, because you have this sort of like plan, way to go about it.
Another great resource to find out a little bit more deeper about the 3 acts would be Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. It's a book that's published. We're also going to link his website down below. He actually has a lot of resources just on the website too. So those were just a few suggestions on how you might conceptualize or map out the trajectory of your story. You can actually apply that in a smaller scale too, for example on a season by season basis. It's important to end your season with such a good hook that it gets readers to come back looking for more. A really great example of this is Siren's Lament. We're not going to put any spoilers in this, but it does end with a big kind of pivotal moment where you're wondering what's going to happen to the characters next.
And that's the kind of thing that you can look for in your seasons, when you want to be able to wrap your season up with something that will have people coming back, and then you can break that down further and put it in an episode. Every episode should end with people wanting to come back to that. You can even do that on a panel by panel basis, making people really want to see the next panel and see what's going to happen.
That all being said, there's actually a lot of ways to differentiate pacing as well. For example, for a series like Lore Olympus, which is a romance between the characters Hades and Persephone, we spend a lot more time mulling over their emotional beats. The series happens only across 3 days in universe, but for us, we've been following it for several weeks. And on the flip side, you can even do a time skip. There's a lot of series that utilize this. They tend to be coming of age stories. So within Webtoon, we have Hooky, which has a time skip between the seasons.
And that's just a good way of showing that like we don't always need to focus on every certain aspect of a character. There are important parts, and we can take time to skip things that aren't as important.
So now we'll go a little bit more into storytelling, which is really about building your skill and how you deliver your story and all of the emotional impact of your series. All of your readers are going to be consuming your series through a phone instead of through page-by-page turns.
Right. So when you're drawing for print, you want to get that next page turn. You want people to turn and see what awesome thing you've drawn on the next page. You want to fill in as many things as you can. A lot of the panels and page or paginated comics are very close together. Fills the page, get as much on the page as you can. But in our comics, when we scroll, we want to change that up a little bit. We want people to continue to scroll downward. And the way we plan for that is by fitting maybe less panels per view. It's helpful, in my opinion, to have no more than a couple panels visible at a time on the phone, and to give yourself plenty of gutter space. In comics, like I said, it's real tight. It's like a 1/4 inch maybe. But in Webtoons, we can throw those pixels out and make it spaced out, give each panel some room to breathe. That makes the reader need to scroll and want to scroll. It gives you that anticipation for the next panel that's coming up. It's a great way to get people to keep reading.
Something that's particularly unique for Webtoon is the vertical scroll formatting, which is where you're viewing your comic on a phone instead of the page. And a big part of that is actually making your comic legible and easy to read, so clarity and legibility.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about clarity and legibility, what we're talking about, well, particularly with clarity, what I'm talking about personally when I talk about clarity is your artwork itself. And that is making sure that we can easily understand what your characters are doing when they're doing it. A lot of things that help with that can be establishing shots, so like showing where your characters are in a large shot before they start interacting with each other intimately, and then having good backgrounds, having backgrounds that allow your characters to stand out from those backgrounds, and then character differentiation, making sure your characters are designed in such a way that they look different and they're easily recognizable. I know who's doing what at certain points, and I'll have to scroll back and figure out, oh, wait, who is standing here, what's going on. Legibility, in my opinion, it refers more to your choice of word bubbles, where you place your word bubbles, and how much you put in them. In Webtoon, I prefer to keep speech bubbles to about maximum of 2, maybe 3 bubbles per panel. Any more than that, you're getting really cluttered, and our goal is to not have your phone screen, which is already small, be too cluttered with things.
That being said, depending on the theme and mood of the series, it can change. Lavender Jack has a lot more writing in it, but for the type of setting that it takes place in, it fits very well for the characters.
Absolutely.
I think Sub-Zero and Blue Chair are great examples of series that do good spacing of legibility in its font and its writing.
And speaking of lettering, we should talk about fonts.
Oh yes, fonts.
Yeah.
To start with font selection, something I would actually recommend to any creator starting off is to check out the website manhwa. It's also going to be linked down below. That's actually a great source for free-to-use fonts. There's some different licensing, but most of the licensing is free for comic creators. Just make sure you are good to use that font for your series, depending on where you're posting it, if you're printing it, anything like that. When picking your font, it's good to make sure you pick something that's clear and easy to read. Sans serif is commonly used. If you take a look at our featured comics, you can get an idea of what fonts are very oftenly used. That being said, you can get more creative with fonts. I know creators who hand letter, who use different fonts for different impact depending on the mood. It's all about just making it clear on a phone screen. And a big part of that, I would also say, is the size.
Yeah, absolutely. Things get lost often when you're going from drawing for a page to drawing for the phone. And one of the things that gets lost is the size of your letters and the size of your words. Sometimes it looks fine on the computer screen while you're drawing it, maybe you're editing it and putting it up and looking it up maybe on webtoon.com, but once it gets to the phone, it'll shrink a bit, and so you have to be aware of that. We want our readers to be able to read it, to not have difficulty. If they have difficulty reading it, they will probably just not read it.
If you'd like some cool visual examples of a lot of what we talked about in this video, check out our series Lozzles. It's going to be linked down below. We have one episode that's about editing your series. That's very useful. That has a lot of visible examples of everything we talked about.
Yeah, definitely so. Please learn these things. Please apply them to your comic. Make your comic better by using the suggestions that we've given you. But also, once you're comfortable with them, play around with them, break them. So take what we've said, apply it, use it to make yourself better, but go out there and make some new stuff.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope it was helpful in how to conceptualize your webtoon. Like and subscribe. Anything we mentioned, any resources that came up are going to be linked in the link box down below.
Absolutely. When you subscribe, don't forget to hit that bell so you get notifications for all of our videos and never get to miss one. And be sure to leave a comment down below. Let us know which bit of advice you're excited to apply to your comic, or which bit of advice you may have already applied and noticed good things from.
Cool. And thank you for checking in, and see you next time.
Webtoon.